evening, everyone. Eloise and Terryann here for another Breakthrough webinar. We thought we'd do something a bit fun this evening. Look at one of my favourite books.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even pull it out yet. I should pull it out. Yeah. So we'll just do a little look
Are
at.
you going to do some bedtime story before we begin?
Yeah, maybe through just through a book and through a quote. There's a nice quote that the founder Esther Veltheim always brings up, and I have the full quote here, which will be kind of nice to look at, and then we'll just look at the little book. It's really short, but one of the things that I find when it comes to breakthrough, people say, "What's this all about?" Well, you basically get to free yourself from behaviors that you've had since you were a kid, right? So, when we're little kids, we learn how to sort of manage other people, right? Manage our parents, let's say. We become really good managers, but that means we're also managing what's going on within us, right? We're managing all the different aspects of ourselves. And part of those aspects are, often what people call their dragons. But what I've noticed is they actually discover a really nice thing about themselves, or they discover that what they've really been doing is saying they're bad when they're not bad, they're not good. It's just stating that you are. It's fascinating. So Rilke, Rainer Maria Rilke, said, "Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. Perhaps everything that frightens us is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love." And I would, I'd really say that's what we're doing. We're just looking inside to find out, what parts did I reject in myself and say it's bad, it should go away, I should get rid of it. I mean, that's one huge concept in Breakthrough. We don't get rid of anything. Yeah, that's a wonderful one to start to realize. Yeah, do we actually get rid of anything? I throw out my garbage, but did I get rid of it? No, I didn't.
Yeah,
still out there.
Yeah.
Or the law of thermodynamics. Nothing can be created or destroyed. It can be transformed. So, of course, the moment we see something, it gets transformed. So, I'd say one of our really, really good mottos in Breakthrough is that breakthrough is the healing nature of conflict, right? Or we're going to shift our perspective on conflict. Both those ways of looking at it. But really, of course, primarily it's a shift in perspective, even to say, hey, I've got dragons in me, I've got wounds, I've got demons. Okay, but you don't know if they're just looking for love. They're just looking for a little love there, just a little, maybe even just a little attention, right? Just, here I am.
See me.
when you have a child who's not paid attention to, they can become bratty to seek attention. They can become the opposite. They can become, super, super quiet and not say anything and etc. to conform, or they can rebel. So, part of us is conforming, part of us is rebelling. But maybe if you just consider for one moment, what we're doing in Breakthrough is loving parts of ourselves that we don't love. That I think it's even worse. I've always, in my personal experience, had this hatred for things inside me. Like I hate this and I hate that and I hate that, I look like this and I hate that, whatever. I hate that I speak this way. I hate my name. Whatever it is that I hate.
Yeah, I think everyone can relate to that.
Probably, right? We all hate something. And I've always felt that that's clearly what I felt. But, we were, a bunch of us instructors were together in the days we had more instructors. And, we were talking about what the opposite of love would be. And I was like, well, the opposite of love is hate. Literally, it is. But the gang said, it's indifference. And I'm like, well, it's not really the opposite, but it would be terrible. Indifference is terrible. Somebody who just doesn't even care about you at all. No matter what you do, you're good, you're bad, whatever you do, whatever actions you take, no one pays attention to you, especially if that's what we're looking for, love.
Yeah.
I'm looking for love, and there's no one to attend to me, no matter what behavior I try to act out as a child.
We want to be noticed. We want to be acknowledged. We want to be accepted.
Sure, we can run down a gamut. That's a really good list. And I'd say that fits into this word that we don't really know what it means, but we all kind of feel like, well, love, I want to be loved, right?
Yeah.
And of course, love, it's acceptance, and all. And
safety.
We have many different words for it. And yet when we're kids, we can't do much about it because we're living with these people who they themselves have experienced the same tragedy, I guess we could say. It's it is a tragedy, but it's also in many ways and very often a tragic comedy, right? You could turn it into a tragic comedy. I'm not going to say what someone's life is, whether it's a tragic comedy or not, but one of the concepts in Sanskrit is Leela, the cosmic joke, right? The ultimate jokes, whatever those are. And it's not like, ha, 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 hilarious, right? It's really, there's a lot at play going on here, right? We're playing. I think Leela also has to do with play. I'm not most familiar with this term, but it's just coming to me right now to go, well, wait a minute, right? We're living in this life with of course, life can be serious, but it also can be very lighthearted, and we can also look at ourselves in a light way. But when it comes to, difficulties that we have, when something triggers us, we're not very lighthearted. I even saw this video yesterday, very quick thing of this girl who, we're in the period of social distancing right now for the pandemic. And a woman got very upset that these teenagers were not social distancing. They were grouped together. I think there was two girls. Mm-hmm. And the person who got really upset, this woman who got really upset, ends up trying to strangle the other girl.
Yeah, I saw
the little girl,
today.
right?
Yeah,
this is like, what a wonderful way to try and teach someone to to take care of themselves.
Yeah, I'm going to come near you, which is the whole point of what you're moaning about. And bonkers, absolutely bonkers.
It is, but I'm stating this not as I'm looking at someone else to judge them. I would like for a moment, since we're not doing group work, I'm just talking about the work that we do. How we actually treat ourselves, right? It's how we treat someone else. All right, and we could do that work. Let's say you would do that in BreakThrough 2. Let's say we're doing, I work with BreakThrough 1. BreakThrough 2 is me and the other, but BreakThrough 1's all about me. And it's really important to start there, that it's all about you, because it's all about you till it isn't.
Yeah.
But if you're triggered, then it's got to be about you. Otherwise, why would you be triggered, right? If a bunch of people are upset about a rule being broken and they all start screaming, and then there's a bunch of people say, well, whether this is a rule or not, it's going against my rights as a human being. Yes, but it's my right to have the laws enforced. No, but it's my right to be able to live free. No, but it's so they're constantly battling, right? This battle that's going on, instead of, well, wait a minute. How can I care for myself? And I think it goes back to the original quote here. Of course you can care for yourself, and it doesn't necessarily mean I have to run around making everyone do what I do. We're all individuals with different needs. So for example, in this pandemic, somebody can have a very strong immune system, so maybe it's great that they go out and they keep using their immune system. That would have to be up to the individual. It's not something you're going to declare or make a statement about. It's just, let me take care of myself. And if I've taken a risk that maybe I shouldn't have, well, okay, well, that's going to be bad for me. But we can't run around doing this when we, just telling people how to live, when there are plenty of nurses and doctors actually in the hospitals. So this is where belief systems are troublesome. We have hypocritical beliefs and we can't reconcile them. But somehow the mind, through its defensive patterns, so if you think of yourself, you're a little kid and you're trying to get love. In that period of time of trying to get love, you're going to hide parts of yourself that you think don't get love, and you're going to live into the parts that you think get love. And every time somebody triggers you, it would trigger that part that you've decided, oh, that's got to stay hidden. Nobody should know about that.
No one knows about that. That doesn't exist.
Yeah. I always find it interesting because, fat is a huge issue in my family. So, you don't want to be fat, so you go on a diet, you starve yourself to death, and you stay skinny.
That's better.
And then all of a sudden you just can't starve anymore, and boom, you explode. You've ruined your body, you've ruined your metabolism, and you just kind of explode into fat. Right? I think of all the times I've shrunk and grown in my life.
Yeah.
And, now, with all of the eating disorders, here you are later on in life, and it's just so difficult to lose a portion of a pound. It's ridiculous, right? But I look back and go, well, you had a lot of stuff going on. You're going to have to do this really slowly for the first time in your life, right? Okay. But it's so interesting because you can't hide the fat.
Yes.
I always laugh, it's like, oh boy, gaining some weight, and then you try to hide it, hide it under black, hide it under, a big sweater. It's like, you can't
Stripes in the right direction. Yeah.
Right, so you're constantly triggered by seeing your own reflection.
And your clothes.
I don't know about anyone else, but I get triggered by my own reflection, right? So it's so fascinating. So we try to hide certain things, but certain things we can't hide in there. Well, actually, I'm not saying this clearly. We try to hide everything, but you can't. Someone's going to spot it, even if they are not conscious that they spotted it, right? I was sitting on an airplane once, and I'm trying to put the seatbelt on, and this little kid's watching me, and he turns around and he says, "It's 'cause you're fat." And I just started laughing. I go, yes, that's right.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm fat, and I just thought, my God, in the past, that would have just, completely wounded me. And this time it was so clear that he's just giving an explanation as to why you can't, the seatbelt's too tight because your bum's too big. Like, lady, that's what's going on with you. And I just thought, oh, that's so fascinating that, well, now it's out there. Not that it wasn't before, but for me, I'm not hiding it anymore. So I'm not walking around really upset. Literally, I would look at the kid and just give him a dirty look and try to hide from the child. That's ridiculous. Even in my 30s and my 40s, I would just be trying to hide it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was just one day, it just didn't matter. I mean, health-wise, it matters, like what's going on in the body. That matters, meaning, well, it actually doesn't matter either, but you're using the mind, or I am using my mind to figure out what's going on. Like, what is the problem? If it was just a problem of shut your mouth and just, eat properly, I would be skinny as a stick, but that's not the problem. The problem isn't about shutting the mouth. It's about what the heck needs to go in this body, and, what's going to give it the appropriate amount of energy, and, how long is it going to take to break down all the fat and what's really going on in there. right? A lot of
Yeah.
women know about menopause, etc. So that's really cool, right? So you can think properly. So I'm just trying to point out, we can go from a place of we're hiding things, we hide it from ourselves, we're hiding it from others, we think we've got it well hidden, but it's seen. I use fat as one of the issues because you can't hide it when it comes out, but nor can you hide anything else. Because even if you're skinny, when you go on these diets, somebody will say something like, I remember when I was skinny, people used to say, you're too thin now. It's gross. I don't like you like this. So it's like, okay, like, what does your opinion of my body have to do with anything? First of all, but it would trigger me.
Yeah.
It would totally trigger me. There was no way to take care of it. So pointing out, we think that we are or are not something, like, no matter how terrible that thing is. And really, we can't be something, or we'd be this constantly changing object. I'm thirsty. Well, now I'm something that's thirsty, and 2 seconds later I'm sleepy, and 2 seconds later I'm angry, and no, we're not all these things. These are experiences that we go through. And in relationship to all of that, we will go into a litany of defenses. We'll defend our position, right? And we know, well, at least most of us realize, yeah, I'm defending, but I don't feel any better. It's not helping me.
Yeah.
I'll keep defending, and
it's exhausting doing the defending.
It's exhausting. It also doesn't, well, it can be all kinds of things, right? We can feel angrier, we can feel more frustration, more worry, more fear, more paranoia as we're defending, because the feeling, the initial feeling, which we call the overreaction, doesn't actually go away. It might calm down over time. I notice people saying, oh, I was triggered yesterday, but today it's not a big deal. Yeah, right. All the, you're not having the strength of the implosion or explosion that you had yesterday, but it doesn't mean that the overreaction's gone. It doesn't mean it's faded, because the overreaction is just an indicator. It's a powerful indicator of a conflict. It's a powerful indicator of something not working out. Those are the dragons in us. So the moment we're overreacting, we're triggered, we overreact. It's like the dragon comes out going, look at me, love me. It's not sitting there saying, defend your thinness or defend some identity. It's saying, no, look at that girl. She needs some love. She needs some kindness. And then, once you get through fat girl, thin girl, you begin to realize, okay, that's not who I am. That's just an image, right? That's the conflict we have. We want the world to see us a certain way, so we'll be loved. But why not, what happens when you love all parts of you? Even those ugly ones, And I find, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up was that a lot of people feel trepidatious to do this work. I mean, it is beautiful work, but I would say it's beautiful and courageous. So perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. And I think that really tells us what, how we come to breakthrough, with this beauty and this courage to gotta go, all right, I'm ready to love my dragons. I'm really, really ready to love. I want to look at my dragon and love it, because you have no idea what your dragon is. Likely some beautiful part of yourself, some great part of yourself.
Yeah.
And even if it's
thing, you don't, sorry, Terryann, you probably hide away parts of you that you think are unloved, that are so delicious that they've been kind of squished away with everything else. When we're kids, we can't distinguish.
Or even the perspective that something bad about you is actually like what you perceive. It's perceptual, right? It's always this shift. If I know that the part of me that could actually fight for myself, well, that part of me could be abusive. It could be dangerous. It could hurt someone, right? So murderous, abusive, dangerous, wild, crazy, or irrational. Uh, yeah, you could go on with the list of things that that part of you could do. But that needs to be, have some attention too, because there may be an occasion that you do need to rise up and protect yourself. It's not something that you don't want it to come up just as an overreaction to the world. Mm-hmm. Just overreacting with ideas. We could get into some of the writings of those boys at Columbine. They just hated the world. People who want to commit suicide, just these perceptions of the world that are terrible, 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 terrible. And that's just the distortions, right? The distortions of who we think we are. We think we have to be a certain thing. And we're so identified with that object. I think I just brought myself off track for a moment because I was just thinking Columbine boys. I'm trying to get myself back. That's something terrible. You don't want it to come up automatically. You want it to be used when it's required. Like, I'll use an extreme example. If somebody's trying to, you and I are together and somebody tries to hit you, I might put my arm out to stop that person from being hit, and they would get hurt, right? They would be hurt. But it's required in that moment, right? It's just, that's the reaction that's required. So every part of us could need love, right? If you have a rabid dog that's about to eat your child, you might shoot the dog. It's terrible. It's a horrible experience. I don't want to go through it, but it might be essential. It might be necessary.
Practical in that moment.
Yeah, so it's not that we're embracing that part of us ourselves to use it in all circumstances, but every character has a place, right? And one of the strongest characters that I find is difficult for people to deal with is the personality that's able to say no when let's say their environment, whoever they are, tends to please others, right? So people pleasers will often see the awful person as the one who says no. Now, I don't really think I care whether they think somebody else who says no is bad, but I do notice when I hear stories, when I'm doing breakthrough, that someone who has a boundary, meaning, no, I can't do that for you or with you, or please stop, because what you're saying to me is neither here nor there. It's not part of this subject matter. This is completely off subject. And the other person who is saying that they're triggered will often say, that was really mean. And I find it so interesting that if someone doesn't please the other, give them what they want. These are draining people, by the way. If you don't give me what I want, I'm going to be upset, and I'm going to keep trying to get this from you. So that's a fascinating character. Is the one who says no is not nice, is mean. That's really, really interesting. And it's not just saying, no, I don't want to go out tonight. No, it's really just, no, stop. Don't do this to me anymore. Stop what you're doing. Because mostly, I always see our world that we've created. I mean, ultimately, we're all the same, right? I've taught breakthrough all over the planet. And each country will tell me, you don't understand, you're not from here. Yeah. You don't understand, you're not from here. I even had a bunch of Canadians that were in this. I think it was in Hong Kong. They said, you don't understand, you're not from our country. I'm like, yeah, I am.
I'm Canadian.
Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah, talk about how the defenses work, right? They'll even, but it is interesting when, like one of my favorite things was being in Hong Kong. And there were Indians, and there were Chinese, obviously, different countries as well. But
Yeah.
the predominant statements that would come out would be, "But Terryann, you don't understand, you're not Indian," or "Terryann, you don't understand, you're not Chinese." And I thought, wow, this is so fascinating that they think that the window dressing, now it's not their clothing, but their traditions, their habits, yes, they're different. Like, we don't eat, I'm of Greek descent. We didn't learn to eat Indian food. We learned to eat Greek food, and then slowly, later on, of course, wanted to eat lots of Indian food, but it wasn't what we learned. But that doesn't make me different. We still eat. We still like certain foods and dislike certain foods. Yeah. Like, you might like palak paneer, you might not like palak paneer. Okay, you might want chicken tikka. Okay, that's fine. But we're all basically the same. We have to eat, and there are foods we enjoy and don't enjoy. So, and I know I'm using food. It's probably not the best example, but it's a metaphor for all of our ideas about life. So here's my ideas, and this is what we have to do, and family is really important. So, you can have somebody from India, and family is really important. They have very rigid rules. Okay, so maybe we don't get divorced, we tolerate things. Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's just because there's more divorce in America doesn't mean that within each individual who's getting divorced that it isn't traumatizing. It's still traumatizing. And okay, so it's accepted that you divorced, but it doesn't mean that you ever divorced, which is interesting, right? Because if you divorce and you haven't dealt with your issues, you're going to go on and do the same thing. If you've dealt with them, if you've seen your dragons, you're going to be able to move on to the next relationship, and it's going to be very, very nice, right? And you'll have your next triggers to work with, right? All right, so I'm going a little bit all over the place, but
that's fun.
So much
fun. We like having fun. Yeah. You want to show us the book?
Oh, well, I'm kind of thinking now, I've gone into so many topics, I don't want to bring that up, but you can read this book. There's no such as a dragon. It's really short. And, these are the things I'm talking about, that we can have a defense, because the mother in this book says to the son, he sees a little dragon, and she says, "There's no such thing as a dragon." So the dragon's growing and sitting on the table, and she says, "What?" He says, "Well, you're not supposed to sit up on the table, but since there's no such thing as a dragon, it doesn't matter."
I can't tell it to not sit there because it doesn't exist.
Not to sit there because there's no such thing. Anyway, it goes on, and the ultimate part is, it's very much like BreakThrough. It's just showing, I'm not looking at my dragon. I know it's there. It's like the elephant in the room. No, it's there. And the more I don't look at it, the bigger it gets, right? So we often notice that the more the more we're triggered, it's like, one trigger after another, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Or you'll have a larger suppression tactic, right? So some people just go, well, when I'm triggered and I overreact, I just take a deep breath and go for a jog. So I don't really care about overreactions, but this backache I've got.
Yeah.
You seem to be suppressing everything into your spine.
But your body's trying to talk to you.
So it's quite fascinating. So so if we start to just realize that, oh my God, I'm not actually loving all parts of myself. It's not this work is beautiful, but I like to say it's also really, really gentle. We do it very, very gently, and just sort of lift off little bits. Like, first, let's acknowledge that we're overreacting, and then notice, okay, what is the strongest or the most predominant emotion? So you notice your emotion, then you see how you're acting, you take responsibility, and then you get to look at all of these really conflicted beliefs. They're all like, you believe one thing and then you believe its exact opposite at the same time. That's the mind. It just goes back and forth. And once you start seeing it, it just starts to give you ultimately freedom. It just frees you up. And all you're doing is looking at, okay, so these are all the things that have been holding. These are the defenses and the beliefs that have held me down, like almost tied down by your own belief systems and keeping you, trapped in there. So kind of like this dragon, when you read the book, you'll see that he grows really big and he's coming out the whole house and he sees a bakery truck and he's like, oh, let's run after the bakery truck. So nobody's looking at the dragon. Nobody's watching it grow. Nobody's paying attention to it. And of course, the moment everyone says, the mothers, they say, oh, what happened? And the little boy says, well, the dragon ran off with the house. And the mother says, but there's no such thing. And the little boy says, yes, there are dragons, right? And then, I'll read you the last line, which I think is so good. I don't mind dragons this size. So the dragon shrinks down, said mother. Why did it have to grow so big? I'm not sure, says the little boy, but I think it just wanted to be noticed. And that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. One of the, hate is bad. Somebody hates something, but indifference, you don't notice that indifference. And we're very indifferent. And this is something kind of that I've been exploring recently. The indifference, the apathy, indifference we have towards our, all of our characters, all of the living characters. I'm not those things, but I can put that outfit on.
Yeah.
I'm not a monster, but I can put a monster outfit on. I do breakthrough, but so I put on my, I have to put on several garbs when I'm doing this. When we're doing a talk like this, which isn't really how we do breakthrough. Usually it's with an audience and I ask questions and we all work together, finding questions. That's looking for questions, questioning all of our assumptions about life. So that's what we usually do. So I have to be a different character. This is kind of like Terryann's experiences and all of the breakthrough experiences. That's kind of what I bring up here. Then, there is the instructor, so who has to get up and actually teach a format of the class. But there's a third character who comes up. When I do a treatment in class, when I actually lead someone, I become another character, and that one's the leader. So as the teacher, I'm not, I have to be in a form where I'm helping the student evoke through questioning different ways of putting together our work. We put it all together ourselves. But when it comes to the breakthrough treatment, I have to lead them, but again, by questioning, but I'm taking them into the rabbit hole kind of thing. So there are three characters. Oh, and then you have the organizer and the manager and that's why I have people like you around, because once I've gone through those three characters, I can't.
There's nothing else left.
But you have to be an accountant. You have to pay all of the bills for the course, venues and manuals, and you got to do all these things. So I'm just bringing this up because it's so interesting to see that we have to walk into these roles. But I'm not that person. I'm not a manual buyer. It's an action I take. So that's one of the big pieces of gradual understanding that we have, is that we aren't any of these things. But noticing, okay, I am, right? I am. I'm completely free to have my experience freely. I don't need to, ultimately it's finding how to love oneself, not how to, just to love yourself. Yeah. Just to do that, just love all parts, and then realize I'm not the parts. I just go into them. Who I am, I have no idea. I'm not the sofa. I'm not your earring. I'm not my sweater. I'm not my hair. I'm not my nose. I'm not my glasses. You know, we often think we are an image. You know, there are lots of things that we think we are. An image. Well, a lot of it is image, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, or personality.
Personality, but the image is what, you know, how I look to you, right? Or my identity could be my profession. My identity could be my PhDs.
Yeah.
But any of those things, I don't have PhDs.
I was going to say all your PhDs.
but all of those things are things that you got in your life, but they're not who you are. And people strongly identify with their profession. You know, my favorite is, I don't know why I know quite a few doctors, and in my personal life, forget professional, in my personal life. And I often hear them say, I'm a doctor, you know.
Yeah.
I just go, okay, that's just, it's like, what is that? What is that? I don't, you're appealing to authority, right? Appealing to a name, but I don't know if, I mean, it does give a set of skills that you may or may not have, but I don't know if you have them.
Yeah.
I mean, why do we go for second opinions? Why do we ask other people who a good doctor is? I think every single client I have ever had, so I don't know, is it 5,000 clients I've had? I don't know, 2,000? Yeah. What do you figure we've had over all these years?
I have no idea.
It's thousands of people we've seen. And every single one, not necessarily around the world, but I will say my Montreal clients, I don't know if this is just a Montreal thing, every single one has some doctor for something. And I've never met anyone who says, well, I've got an average doctor. They all say, I have the best.
Best. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Like, wow, there's so many doctors.
There's so many amazing doctors in Montreal. If I need anything, I know where to go.
It's really interesting. I have the best cardiologist. I have the best oncologist. I have the best
gynecologist.
You know, eyes, ears, and throat. But supposedly, I'm going to be going to the best gynecologist. And I started making an appointment in 2018. So there's one scheduled for 2020. So we'll see. It's 2 years trying to get to. It's like, do I really need the best, or could I just go to someone?
Yeah, and see them 2 years earlier.
You know, I mean, how bad could the rest of them be? What's she going to find in there? Like you know, villagers, right?
Yeah, Smurfs.
Smurfs, their little, you know,
all the wombles. I don't know.
Signals. Like, what's she going to find in there that she'd have to, you know, have this massive expertise, right? You know, and by now they have troops in there because
it's been 2 years.
If there was something really necessary to look at, well, seriously, oh boy, yeah. Now I've just got this whole idea that my uterus is filled with people, but anyway.
Yeah. But only she can see them. That's why she's the best gynecologist.
She has a massive magnifying glass. All right, we're being silly.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Go back to the fun thing again.
Well, I think we covered a lot of territory.
Yeah, I think we have. I was going to say. I think
this is nice. A good. Might be a good place to stop.
Before we may put more people in your.
Just to finish this thought is that yes, we have the best. So what is that problem? Like, why? I consider it a problem because you can't have that many of the best. Yeah. You know, like everyone's got the best cardiologist, but it's a different guy, right? It's obviously something to do with this need to, you know, I think the thing about staying safe, right? I better find a way, and you wouldn't don't tell me I don't have the best, right? Don't tell me I don't have the best guy. It's really, it's fascinating. You know, I don't know if I care about the best, but I care about when I'm having a relationship with let's say my doctor or whoever it is. I want to feel comfortable enough that, you know, that everything's answered. Yeah. Or something, you know, but it's loving myself enough.
the best person, and then you just don't vibe with them.
Yeah,
And
that
so then you
might
can't
exactly
ask
happen.
questions, and yeah.
But even though you're considered the best, doesn't mean you might be the best for me.
Yeah.
Or do we do the best job? Do we? I don't know. I don't know. Like anybody has a limited repertoire. I think. I don't know. I think we're good practitioners. I think I'm a really good practitioner, but I'm not going to be the best for everyone.
Yeah. Snap.
You know, so yeah, we get
Yeah.
different opinions, we get different views, and I think that that's really important. Well, I'm not sure why I was bringing it up. I think I was bringing it up to indicate that we do seek something, right? So yes, you know that somebody has an image, and you're going to go there. That's one practical action we can take. But if we're just looking for that as our identity, or he's the best, as I'm mentioning now, it may or may not be true, because there's another grouping of people who that are a subset here, where I got the best. Oh, now I'm suing him because he did this and that, and it's not good. It's like, yeah, but he's the best.
Yeah.
So what's going on? Not that you can sue or you don't sue, but I think most people that want to sue expect a perfect outcome, and you can always find a problem. I don't really. I can see personal viewpoints, especially since iatrogenic death is pretty high, right? So treatment by doctors is pretty high out there. So we know that, but we still go. I mean, I just went off my medication for pain, and wow, it was a trip, man. It was a real trip doing that, and I kind of look and go, well, when I made the choice to take the medication, I read a few of the symptoms, but I decided not to go too deeply into it because I was pretty darn desperate at the time to have the pain alleviated. So it's like, okay, I'm going to take the risk. And then it came out the other end, and the benefits were no longer outweighing the negatives, and the negatives were headache, dizziness. I couldn't function anymore. So it's like, well, let's give it up. Well, that was just, it's been 2 months of, the drug, making me all insane in the head, not being able to function, and then going off. Now, you could turn around and say, well, let's go sue the company I lost 2 months of. That's ridiculous. There's side effects.
Yeah.
They're
documented.
Well, it's not just that they're documented. I'm saying people don't always know. My point here is that we need to be responsible for ourselves. So you put a pill in your mouth. You wouldn't, well, some people would, but you wouldn't go out on the street and you say, oh, I have a headache, and somebody has a pill. And say, why don't you just take this?
Especially right? Around here.
So we don't do that, right?
No, I don't want taking.
We just don't do those things. My sister makes fun of me because when I was in my starvation phase, I was fainting, and there was a woman, and she, in Greece, on an island, she said, take these, they're karvona, and karvona is charcoal. So I saw her, and I saw the pill came out, and it's charcoal. You can see
it like charcoal. Yeah.
It's got the texture. It makes your hands fly. And I pop it, and my sister grabs my hand. She says, what are you doing taking forage? I'm like, it's just karvona.
It's just charcoal.
I don't know what it is. And I said,
well, she hasn't made something that looks like charcoal, just in the off chance she meets someone.
It was just really
ground up smells.
But she still makes fun of me, right? She still says, oh, I was so stupid. And I was like, well, no, I pretty much trust that I knew what it was. She could have been right, but now goes to that woman. Why would you do that? You made the choice, and that's where I'd really, I kind of look at our society and see that a lot of our responsibility is deferred.
Yeah.
It's so nice if you don't defer it. Now, I don't say, when something goes wrong and you go and deal with it, but you should take responsibility for your part in the story. Like, let's say I was brain damaged from this drug and it wasn't listed that I'd be brain damaged. Well, I might go sue, but I'd be too brain damaged to sue, but that's besides the point. But I'd also take responsibility for, I took the pill. I took that medication. I did it. That was my choice. It's kind of like, different aspects, like people who get, there's one of my favorite stories is this woman who calls into a French radio program here in Canada, and the guy says, you got pregnant. Why did you get pregnant if you didn't want to be pregnant? And she says, par accident, by accident. And he says, mais madame, t'as tombé sur son penis ou quoi? Did you fall on his penis or what? Right? And it's just interesting that we tend to look at our lives as it's a big accident, and it's not. Even if you make a spur of the moment choice, it's still your choice. It's not somebody else who forced you to it. So, this is one interesting part of breakthrough that people tend to have difficulty with, but we must take responsibility to remove ourselves from victimhood. So hopefully that was a fun talk about what brings us into victimhood. We're not victims. You pick up your hand and every day you stick a pill in. And I can tell you, it was a year and 2 months. I kept putting that pill in my mouth, and every time I put it in, I almost wanted to do this, right? I didn't like it, but I made the choice every day, and I said, I'm doing it because it alleviates the pain. I can move around more, and I do need to have movement because not moving is not healthy either. So I kept doing it till the pill started reducing my movement as well. And then I went, well, now we're in a catch-22. So I make the choice to stop. And I'm responsible for those actions. Wasn't fun, but responsible. So those are, story form, some of the basic concepts. I know that it's hard to understand the belief systems, but if you think of every assumption you make, and you can make very, very simple assumptions. I once had a discussion with someone who said, we can have reasonable expectations. And I thought, no, you can't have any. Can't have any expectations. Any expectation that you have will be met with disappointment. So I don't have reasonable expectations. I have preferences of what I prefer in life. So if I prefer people to be on time, and I have a friend who's not on time, well, I'm pretty much guaranteed that friend's no longer going to be a friend, because I prefer to be on time. Sitting around waiting for someone is not going to work out for me. Just my preference. So I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to, start defending. I'm going to just say, well, no. Let's say I could make a choice that I know that they're always 15 minutes late. I'll say, okay, I'll meet you at 1, and then I'll arrive at 1:15. There's so many different ways you could solve things for yourself. Without, being triggered or looking for a defense or forcing other people to do things, you find ways to be practical in your life. This is a big concept in breakthroughs, is taking practical action, right? The moment we can't take practical action, we are overreacting to something. And then we go into our excuses and justifications and all that stuff. So basically, we don't really work in the mind in breakthrough. We don't do that at all. The mind is a place that we try to stay away from. So the questions we ask, we don't question what you believe, we question what you assume.
Yeah.
So it's really like somebody was, oh my goodness, I can't think of a phrase right now, but we should be at peace. That could be, that's based in an assumption that peace is something that we could actually have, right? Can we have peace? Well, think about it for a little bit. Conflict helps us learn something new. If I have no struggle with building something, I'll never be able to build it sturdily. If, it's not like we wake up automatically and we're going to know how to make a perfect souffle. I'm going to have to learn about it. It's going to have to fail a bit. I need some conflict there. So we have to go through that little climb, that little battle. It's just the way the world is. No, you can't have summertime all the time. I mean, I love arid weather, but if you just have arid weather, you're not going to have any water. That's a whole other slew of problems. Oh, yes, and I know there are people who believe in idyllic paradise-like places where, no, we have perfect water, perfect temperature, perfect climate, perfect this, perfect that. That's absolutely contra nature.
Yeah, I was like, do these places exist? It's like, yeah.
Well, it exists in people's minds, create a bubble and make it exist. But there's always somebody, that might not want to live there. My favorite example has always been, look, if we have peace and everybody's wearing the same clothes, what clothes are we going to choose? If everybody's going to look the same, which features are we going to pick? Right? Everything will be exactly the same. So nobody's going to be triggered by how someone else looks or someone else's body. None of these things. No one's going to get sick. You still have a problem. What if they decide, there's nothing wrong with Enya, but I worked in a store and they played Enya 24/7. And I just can't do it. I just hear it and it's like, oh my God, it's like Chinese water torture, right? And so what are we going to do? What music are we going to play? We're going to play Tchaikovsky or AC/DC? I don't know, So there's conflict is going to exist. Otherwise you have to create little replicant robots, right? So these are things we don't think about, Then we say, well, Terryann, you're being very extreme and unreasonable. Like, am I? Or do you look at your life and get really aggravated by people who don't follow? So like the latest thing is, you're not social distancing. You're not exactly 6 feet apart. You're not, it's like, come on, right? This whole idea that somebody else is supposed to take care of you, just take care of yourself. It's okay if somebody risks getting some of your boogers. If they decide to do that, that's what they want to do. We're educated, we know, but what are you afraid of? You can step away. You can step away. It's just really kind of funny.
Yeah.
All right, my dear. Well, I think maybe we made a little.
I think we did. Everyone will be going out buying that book. It's good. It is good.
Yes, do that. Who wrote this? Jack Kent. Isn't it cute?
Yeah.
So cute.
Really cute book.
I've just got to show you the little dragon.
He is really cute.
This is how he appears.
I bought it for my nephews, and because I can't go and see them, I read it out to them.
Yeah, right there.
Oh, so cute.
I just love it. This is a great book. This is, if you look at this book, you see exactly what BreakThrough's about, So maybe we should have done a reading. Should I read it anyway? And that way, if people aren't interested, they can.
Yeah, go on. It'll take 5 minutes.
That's right. So Billy Bixby was rather surprised when he woke up one morning and found a dragon in his room. It was a small dragon about the size of a kitten. The dragon wagged its tail happily when Billy patted its head. There you go.
Oh, he's paying it attention.
And Billy went downstairs to tell his mother, there's no such thing as a dragon, said Billy's mother. And she said it like she meant it. Billy went back to his room and began to dress. The dragon came close to Billy and wagged its tail, but Billy didn't pat it. If there's no such thing as something, it's silly to pat it on the head. Billy washed his face and hands and went down to breakfast. The dragon went along. It was bigger now, almost the size of a dog. Billy sat down at the table. The dragon sat down on the table.
Ooh.
That sort of thing was not usually permitted, but there wasn't much Billy's mother could do about it. She had already said there's no such thing as a dragon. I love this, but there wasn't much Billy's mother could do about it. She had already said there was no such thing as a dragon. If there's no such thing as a dragon,
I'll go back on my word.
Off the table. I mean, I find that fascinating. That what I mean, it's such a subtle sentence, but she can't do anything about it. Mother made some pancakes for Billy, but the dragon ate them all. Mother made some more, but the dragon ate those. There's the mother, like, such thing as a dragon, but Mother kept making pancakes until she ran out of batter. Billy only got one of them, but he said it was all he really wanted. There he is under the table, and the mother's there with an empty bowl. So funny.
Eating the non-existent dragon.
So Billy went upstairs to brush his teeth. Mother started clearing the table. The dragon, who was quite as big as Mother by this time, made himself comfortable on the hall rug and went to sleep. So he's pretty darn big now, right?
Yeah.
By the time Billy came back downstairs, the dragon had grown so much he filled the hall. Billy had to go round by the way of the living room
I love this.
to get where his mother was. I didn't know dragons grew so fast, said Billy. There's no such thing as a dragon, said Mother firmly. Cleaning the downstairs took Mother all morning. What with the dragon in the way? She's
lifting it on.
And having to climb in and out of windows to get from room to room.
To avoid the thing that doesn't exist. And I'm not going to
avoid the very thing that does not exist. By noon, the dragon filled the house, and its head hung out the front door, its tail hung out the back door, and there wasn't room in the house. It didn't have some part of the dragon in it, so it's all full.
It's everywhere.
So now, when the dragon awoke from his nap, he was hungry. A bakery truck went by. The smell of fresh bread was more than the dragon could resist. The dragon ran down the street after the bakery truck. The house went along, of course, like a shell on a snail. There's the house. And the little bakery truck. The mailman was just coming up the path with some of the mail for the Bixbys when their house rushed past him and headed down the street. He chased the Bixby's house for a few blocks, but he couldn't catch it. When Mr. Bixby came home for lunch, the first thing he noticed was the house was gone. Luckily, one of the neighbors was able to tell him which way it went. Mr. Bixby got in his car and went looking for the house. He studied all the houses as he drove along. Finally, he saw one that looked familiar. Billy and Mrs. Bixby were waving from the upstairs window. There they were, waving from the upstairs. Mr. Bixby climbed over the dragon's head onto the porch roof and through the upstairs window. How did this happen? Mr. Bixby asked. It was the dragon, said Billy. There's no such thing, the mother started to say. There is a dragon, Billy insisted. A very big dragon. And Billy patted the dragon on the head. There's the giant dragon. So now the dragon wagged its tail happily. Then even faster than it had grown, the dragon started to get smaller. Soon it was kitten size again. So you can see it shrinking.
Shrinking. And the house gets us to live somewhere else forever.
Yeah, it's like, did the house go back?
Yeah, no,
It
makes me laugh. The house walked back later.
And that's the ending that I read before. I don't mind dragons this size, said Mother. Why did it have to grow so big? I'm not sure, said Billy, but I think it just wanted to be noticed. Isn't it interesting? You know, this is one thing in Breakthrough. When we ask the question, we ask you to answer from the honest place of an 8-year-old. So I mentioned earlier that it was about an 8-year-old when I was on the airplane and he's watching me put on the belt that he just turns around and goes, because you're fat. Well, yeah, there's the honest answer of the 8-year-old. There's no, well, why don't you try this? It's like, lady, you're just fat. So you have to shove your fat there, you know? And I thought, wow, that's so good, right? And here's this little kid who just wanted to be noticed. So that's basically what we're doing, isn't it?
Perfect.
We're doing this work so we can notice things we never noticed before about ourselves, and then we're free of it. It just kind of like, I guess it shrinks down to size because the overreaction is this big, huge dragon, and then it just shrinks down. It's like, oh, I can manage that. Sure, the dragon can stay in the house. Sure, we can feed that dragon. That's it.
Perfect.
There we go.
You.
Thank you. Namaste. Have a great evening, everyone, and hope you enjoyed that. So give us a little feedback.
Yeah, drop us an email. Let us know. Go and buy the book because it's cute.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll probably do another call next month.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea. It would be nice if we did a call though, with people on and we could do some work.
Yeah.
See what it's like. Ask some questions and people could do some answers.
Yeah, come and ask us questions.
That's right.
Anyway,
All right, guys.
I hope this helped you understand BreakThrough, and we'll see you next month.
Yeah.
Thanks, Terryann.
Thank you. Bye, sweetie.
Bye.
Bye.